As I walked down through Chatham Street, a fair maid I did meet. She asked me to see her home, she lived in Bleecker Street. To me away, Sandy, my dear Annie. Oh, you New York girls, can you dance the polka?
The Long Haul Podcast, America's Irish Voice. Interviews with inspiring immigrants, renowned Irish personalities, and discussions on all things Irish America. Presented by Michael Dorgan and Johnny Kennedy. This is our introductory podcast where Johnny and myself, Michael Dorgan, outline what the Long Haul Podcast is about, what we're aiming to achieve, what topics we'll be covering, and what guests we'll be interviewing over the coming months. We discuss how the idea for the podcast came about and what listeners and viewers can expect from the podcast. Podcasts with Dublin footballer Jack McCaffrey and former Kerry County Board Chairman the Bag O Sullivan, who is a Sunnyside native, are now available to stream online. Interviews with former Cork footballer Larry Tompkins, Donegal New York club veteran Donal Gallagher, as well as fashion blogger Louise Cooney will be released over the coming few weeks. Please subscribe to the Long Haul Podcast, which is available on all major podcast platforms and is also available to watch on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate all feedback, comments or suggestions, so please give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. We begin this podcast by providing you with some background information on both myself and Johnny. Johnny here alongside me is the owner of the Long Haul Bar, where we're currently sitting on East 34th Street in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. He's owned this bar for the last 5 years and has been living in New York for the past 20 years. So Johnny, just give us a rundown on your background, please.
Okay, well, I'm co-owner anyway. I don't want Colin and Jerry getting upset about that. Yeah, I'm 20 years in New York, here since just before 9/11. Not to start off in a low point, by 2001, got here in the bar business, i.e. bartender. I think when you came here originally, you had two options. You become a construction worker or become a bartender or waitress or something like that. These hands, never going to do construction. Not a chance. They can barely do bartending. Yeah, and then natural progression anyway was always, which is a great compliment to New York. You know, when you're a bartender, you're always aspiring then to get your own bar. And I have a lot of good mates. Michael McNamee now, one in particular now would be very close with Michael now. So I remember Michael getting me and Fiddler originally, and that was like me and Colin and Michael and all, a good few of us all would have been friends. I remember seeing that and thinking, that's, you know, when you see your mate doing it, you're thinking, that's great, we can do it. And that's really what it was in the back of my head. So long story short, after a bit of looking at times and different stuff like that, myself and Colin Clark and Jerry McEntee got together and got the Long Haul. Yeah, and touch wood, thanks to thanks to the Irish community, no doubt about it. The Long Haul has been a pretty good success now in the last few years anyway. It's been brilliant, but I couldn't over-egg the Irish community being amazing. So yeah, I've been here ever since. 5 years has gone amazing, but it's gone so quick. Like, I know everyone says it does, but it really has. But it's good. And this is your first bar in New York, and you're currently in the process of opening a new bar just a couple of blocks away. Yeah, we're opening another bar over on 38 between 5th and 6th. Going to call it the Westbury. Yeah, so and Conor Moore's involved with us in that and stuff, so that's good. But yeah, that's going to be brilliant. Let's see. So just to give you a background on my own story, I moved to New York about 18 months ago. I'm a journalist working with a local newspaper here out in Queens. When I arrived here in September 2018, I got a job at Irish Central, so I worked with them for about a year. They're an Irish-American news website, and throughout that time and before I came here, I did some writing with the Irish Examiner back home, and I continue to do so, some freelance stuff and some stuff with the Irish Times, primarily in sport, but any kind of Irish-American story that might drop here, I would cover stuff like that. And just to give you background on how myself and Johnny met, it was through a story I was doing for the Irish Examiner, and it was kind of it came out of a need for, or what we thought was a kind of a gap in the market here about covering items that were newsworthy here in New York. Back last September, as people in New York might know, or well, a lot of Ireland would know now, the new president, the GA president-elect, is a man called Larry McCarthy from my own county Cork, a Bishopstown man. Larry put his hat in the ring for the GA presidency back in last September, and I was trying to get hold of Larry for an interview over that weekend. I think it was September, October. Larry went home for the weekend. Didn't hear from him for a couple of days. The next thing, I got a call to come into the Long Haul to do an interview with Larry, and
funnily enough, it was a shitty all day, lashing rain. I was doing another job, and quite frankly, all I wanted to do was do an interview over the phone. And by that time, I don't think I had met you, Johnny.
No, I hadn't met you.
So I had been into the long haul a couple of times, and a lot of people know the long haul is it's the GA headquarters of New York, basically. If you're coming for a match, if you're coming to watch a match here, or you're in town and you want to watch something, the long haul is the place to be. And I came in, I met Larry anyway, and Johnny was behind the bar, and music was blaring, and I wanted to do a private interview, and was looking for somewhere to go. Upstairs was taken, where we currently are now. We're upstairs in the long hall, so in case you are coming in someday on East 34th Street to get the best pint of Guinness in New York,
no doubt.
we are straight up the stairs. But anyway, came in, did the interview, went downstairs, actually had no place to go, and Johnny sent me downstairs to his office, and so myself and Larry did a 35-minute interview, which I had to cut down for about 1,000 words for the Irish Examiner. And Larry left, and I just got talking to Johnny at the door, and we must have been talking for about an hour, a good hour, because obviously we have a common interest would be football and GA, and we just got talking. And the conversation I had with Larry, and people will get to know Larry over the next couple of weeks and months as the GA president, but his knowledge of the sport and the marketing, which is his job. He's a sports marketing lecturer here in New York. But I was kind of taken aback by what he had said, and as a journalist who primarily writes, when you get an audio recording that's 35 minutes long and then you have to cut it to 1,000 words, it's like you almost kind of lose a great bulk of that interview, and sometimes it's not conveyed properly to the actual article. And so as it so happens, it was a simple Q&A format, so even at that I thought there was a lot missing. But I got talking to Johnny, and that weekend I think you dropped we said that there was a kind of a gap in the market here, and
you actually sent me the link of the interview, and I got to the end of it and I was looking for the rest of it, and I remember even thinking that, and I think I asked you that then straight out, is that it?
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, and you were like, I know, it was a Q&A, well, it is what. And I had actually tied with the idea, and I'd mentioned to a few people over the last year or two about the podcast, even before you were living here or something like that, and I said to a few people, like, just think of doing it. Like, to me, I was thinking for the bar it'd be good, obviously, but it was more so, there's so much goes on in New York, and nobody knows about it, or nobody even gets a mention, whether it be Gaelic Park, whether it be lads going on, but even in the bar industry, where's good to go, where's things to do. Like, a lot of people move here, and I know you have social media, you can look up different things, but that's where, when I was angling that towards you that night, that's what I was thinking. Like, I think there's a great market here for people in New York. Like, we want to know how other young Irish people are doing, or how they got to where they are, like, whether it be in whatever business it might be. Like, I know we're going to interview Paddy down the road, like, even that
Paddy Green,
even
Green promoter,
even like what Paddy does, like, it's fascinating. Like, how did Paddy get into it, or how does somebody from Ireland come over and get to Paddy? Like, I know they go through social media and they find Paddy, but just the whole end of it, and even Louise, who we'll have coming up in the next few weeks, as she said,
Louise Cooney, the fashion blogger,
a guy approached Louise in the airport and, like, thanked her. She'll explain that story. Again, through social media. But I think there's just so much that there's a market there for people, just for us to guide them in the right way, or even different things.
And we were driven a lot by sport that weekend, and the more we thought about it, we thought we'd kind of merge into more. And from my own personal point of view, I was here about a year at that stage, and I had covered about, I'd say, 4 of Katie Taylor's fights for both the Irish Examiner and the Irish Times. And at the same time, I was working with Irish Central, and it was just their point of view. They focused on a lot of other things, and they didn't really focus heavily, and this isn't a go off them, but they just weren't covering sport the way I thought that. I just didn't think that it was getting proper coverage. Like what Katie
sport here in New York by Irish people, or
Irish people were coming to New York, and what Katie Taylor was doing the last year and continues to do was just kind of out of this world. And I felt that there were just people in New York. There's so many Irish people here that they weren't like. I didn't feel that there was like everyone was kind of I wouldn't say on board, but they weren't all kind of wrapped up because they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that she was in town and she was going for X, Y, and Z belt. Now, when the Olympics are on at home, everyone knows the Olympics are on, and Katie Taylor's going for that. But she was in the professional sphere here, and what she is doing, what she continues to do, is just she's transcending the sport. And we just felt when we were talking about about the podcast that weekend, that there was something missing here in New York, that people aren't getting the information about who's in town. Irish people, primarily. Irish people are coming into town, be it sports, be it arts, be it music, whatever, and people just don't know that there's no avenue there for Irish Americans here to know what's going on. And we thought that with the Larry example and Katie Taylor, that this podcast could act as a medium to, get people on who were in for the week, tell the audience what's going on, and we just thought that this could be a great medium. Hopefully we'll be proven right in the long term.
Yeah. And that, like, everyone is kind of like, more so than I think people at home. There's very few people, I know a lot of the young Irish, like, they're coming in through the bar here over there, and we're obsessed with podcasts. We all commute. Very few people drive. You leave the house in the morning, you have the two Johnnies on a Monday. You know that's coming in. You're going into a Woolly, you're going into Off the Ball, second captains, whatever it is, whatever your thing is. So we're just more so than people at home. You'd say to people at home, I like to listen to podcasts. Yeah, I'm just getting into them now.
Yeah.
Everyone here is into them.
Yeah. Everyone's into them, and there's no one doing a podcast that's covering Irish America here in New York, and that's where we think we'll come in. And you might say, why are you doing it in a bar? But you should. And what Johnny had said to me, I think Shane Lowry, who you're good friends with, was in a couple of weeks earlier with just after winning the British Open, and even the last couple of weeks we've had Larry Tompkins in. We've had former Cork great Larry Tompkins. We've had Jack McCaffrey in. We've had Louise Cooney, the fashion blogger. The long haul. There's a lot of people, a lot of renowned people coming through the doors here, and we just felt,
it is good because, and I think like there's a young kid that's just come over now from Offaly. He's actually a friend of the lads you mentioned there and stuff like that. And it was very funny. He was literally day 3 or 4 here, and he said to me, he's going working for us in the Westbury, and he says to me, this will be a great bar now. If I get homesick now, this is where I'm going to come. And I was like, you're going to go to a bar when you get homesick? But I knew the point he was making. It was a great compliment, because he's looked at the grocery, he's looking at everything straight away, the sports, and he was really genuine about it. And that was one of the best things I've heard about it. That is great. That was what we were targeting here. Not the homesick fella that wants to stay in here getting drunk, but you know what I mean. That wasn't his point. He just had that warm feeling about it. And that's, you're right. There's a lot of people have come through here between, whether it be Shane, Connor, the Dublin football teams, Kerry, all the GA have been brilliant, and the likes of Shane, who you mentioned, and stuff like that, Louise Cooney and the girls, any of them, they're in the area. But it's great for them. They've said it themselves, as Louise will explain herself. It is good for us to have it here. But as regards the New York thing, we were also commenting like on Gaelic Park, which we mentioned, like we did, like everyone has such a fondness for it, but I feel that there's nothing covered about that either.
So where we were coming from, just to let you know, we were coming from an angle of, I as a journalist, that I'm fresh here really. So at this point I'm discovering New York as well. And with your knowledge of being here for the last 20 years, that we thought together and with the people coming through the doors, that we'd really complement each other, get the people in the doors, and then cover things that need to be covered. Like you said, a big issue here is Gaelic Park up in New York, and GA, and we are both into our GA, but GA will be covered here. And we just thought there needs to be a voice for Gaelic Park and what's going on there, because like everything else, there doesn't seem to be. There's just kind of a lot of rumours this and rumours that and what's going on, and no one really knows what's going on. And we just thought we'll probably have Joan Henchy in a couple of weeks now, the new chairperson of the New York County Board. She'll come in and explain the new Gaelic Park plans. But we just wanted to get,
just in general, but I see the passion that the lads that have over the years, the teams that have won. Like, when Longford, like the lads won it there a few years ago, and Sligo last year, and I see the buzz the lads put into celebrating and the whole buzz. But like, for say someone like me or a few of the other guys that are bartending on Sundays and we work on Sundays, we don't know what's going on up there and we don't get it. It'd be nice to get a few of them lads in to ask them about it. People to talk about the money that gets spent on players and different things over the years. Like, these people are really into it, and it deserves a bit of a voice and to know what's going on. What's wrong with us telling them who's playing this weekend, who's coming up, who's in, who's out, who's suspended, who did this, who's gone to junior, who's done this. It's like, unless you're in one of the teams, or you're up there, you have no idea what's going on, and there's nowhere to find about it. So, and yet when you sit here, and we spoke to from Donegal last week, we spoke to Donal Gallagher, Donegal club from New York, who had managed Donegal back in the 80s and 90s and early noughties, and who brought Larry Tompkins basically here to New York. And we've
interviewed both.
Yeah, but he found Larry Tompkins through a newspaper, like back in the 80s. He knew more what was going on in Gaelic Park in the 80s, or he certainly found out more that was going on and the whole thing.
Or even back home, he was saying, through the newspaper.
He found it through the newspaper.
And he had never seen Larry Tompkins play, he told us.
Yeah, because he just seen this kid that was scoring. But we're sitting on 34th Street, and I'm sitting on 34th Street on a Sunday afternoon. And like I can find out what it is, and you can find out, but like you'd have to go out of your way to find out.
You can, and to be fair, the Irish Voice, who I would have done some work with, who own the Irish Central, who are the sister publication, they do a lot of results.
That's good.
But you know, as we know, print media kind of
like they're going to cover it as much as they can, put a bit on it, and that's it.
And we're just putting it onto audio and video, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, like who's going to, I think there's a lot to be covered there, and that goes across the board. And
with the goal, our ultimate goal here is to kind of, shine a light on the GA here. And, if more people are talking about it, more people know what's going on, more people will likely get involved. And it's just to improve the whole New York GA here as a whole.
And then even like suggestions from people as regards, what they'd like to talk about or get us to cover for them. Yeah. Because the visa thing is a big thing. A lot of people don't know what visa is what. Like, and you have people coming here now, oh, well, I'm on this visa, I'm on that one, what are you on? Who should I go through? Will I go to that lawyer? Will I go to this lawyer? Like, I see it on there, I think there's a J1 graduate page on Facebook, and the questions on it regularly. Like, should I apply for my taxes? Is it okay to go to Toronto when I'm at the end of my 90 days? Or not the 90 day, but any of these visas. And people are just saying, yeah. Other people saying, yeah, go for it. My mate Jimmy did it.
Yeah, and there's a lot, and I think we spoke to Louise a small bit about it, and we want to cover the likes of visas, because visas aren't being covered, and they're so important. But as you say, no one knows. Yeah, and people are kind of, it's almost it's hushed in a bar, like this visa, that visa, and because
a lad doesn't want to. Well, what do you mean? Like when Jeffrey O'Connor sat here with us in the early days when we were trying this out. Yeah. Jeff said the same thing. He just went with one of the lads that was in the office, and in hindsight, he probably should have gone a different route, or he should have done some other way. Like, there's again that we could school ourselves on a little bit better, and hopefully give people advice on it. Whether we get one of the well-known lawyers that involves in it on here would be ideal, and they could probably tell people what's the right and wrong way to go about it. And it'd be also ideal to be on here if we need any All-Ireland tickets. You know what I mean?
And replay tickets.
That's right. And even with this current virus that we're not going to cover, but if we're going to, it's a good time to start looking at flights, lads. You know what I mean? We'll give you suggestions on that.
But the visa thing was another thing that we wanted to get stuck into, because we throughout the podcasts we'll reveal my visa story, your situation, and it's just the more people talking about it, the less likely people are going to make mistakes, because in this environment, one mistake will have you sent.
But it's also so much Chinese whispers or whatever they call it. I've been hearing it for I'm 20 years here,
and you must hear so much in the bar.
But you hear other people saying, "Don't go there to renew your visa. Don't go here, go there, go there." But you're just that's just not enough to go on, because Mickey Bag O Donuts told you that down at the bar. Now, we all know all the great sources and everything that's proper and right comes from a bar, but realistically, this is your life on the line. Like, this is your future, and again, not to scaremonger, but we'd love to hear people's opinions on it or stories. Like, a lot of people are getting a lot of grief this Christmas. Like, you're coming back with a genuine visa, and next thing you're getting grief in Dublin airport, or whether it be Dublin or Shannon. So should you have not gone?
People are afraid to go home.
Yeah, and I came here, you were illegal, everyone was illegal, so it wasn't an option. You didn't go home. And there wasn't it. Yeah. But now people are there. You have a visa in your hand that says you have a visa to work in this country. So if you have a visa to work and you have a visa to travel, or is that me being wrong? And I know...
You're still getting quizzed.
You're still getting quizzed. And why is that? And what is that? Are we doing something wrong? Are they just being anal? Yeah. So again, there are loads of topics that I'm sure people would love to get to the bottom of them things and find out.
And we would encourage people to, as we go along, to give us some feedback, give us some comments, who you'd like to get on, what stories you'd like us to cover. I'll throw up the handles, the Long Haul Podcast, at the Long Haul Podcast is most of them, at the Long Haul Pod is the Twitter one. Give us some feedback. We will take all positive and negative, but the negative will be discarded.
Totally.
But this is.
You can leave it on the toilet wall in the Long Haul if you have any negatives.
We started this process back in last October, really, and we've made a few mistakes along the way, a few technical errors, but so this is a learning process for me, and we want to engage with the audience. And if you think that we should go in a certain direction, or you think, gee, this person would be great to be on, this is what we are trying to do. We want to be a platform to, highlight Irish America here, well, primarily in New York, but across the States if possible, if we manage to grow.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think there is a good market for it. And I know we've had a lot of people stick on it. When's the pod coming out? When's the pod coming out? So if that's something to go by, there's enough people there definitely to criticise that will end up listening to it.
When we do release, we have been flat out at this podcast.
Yeah,
but we think we really invested in the. If you see the studio here, the gear, it was just a matter of kind of putting it together and getting it out right as well. We didn't want to be, although we have made one or two mistakes with a.
Don't mention Larry Tompkins.
few podcasts. Like, so the bar, Johnny, is like I know you're, like, you'd want to be. The bar is kind of like a hub here of Irish America, and credit to you, like as you said there earlier, that this place is like a home for people. It's not like, a lot of people come to wherever they are in the world, they go to an Irish bar that's in some country and you see it's shamrocks in the front, you go in the door, it's just a normal pub. But if you ever come into the Long Hall, and I urge you, anyone visiting New York, come to the Long Hall on East 34th Street, come in the door and you're met with it's called the Long Hall Pub and Grocery, and the grocery is where Johnny and Cahill have a little shop in the front where you get your Barry's tea, your Weetabix, your
It's like the date and
your tins of beans and quality Guinness, and people it's just a lovely Irish bar. It's replicated off the Long Hall bar. And
not really, the one in Dublin a little bit, probably from the grocery down is. We were always fans of that, me and Cahill and a few other friends. Just love the name of that, and it's a great history behind the Long Hall in Dublin, and Marcus and Val and all them were actually really helpful at the start with different stuff. So we kind of did a bit of a nod to that with the clock and a few other things.
And with
the grocery,
in case everyone thinks we're copying the lads on Off the Ball.
No, the lads on Off the Ball would be very good to tell you the story behind this. They we actually
just
donate.
Let us know, Johnny, because obviously you're good friends with some of the lads. We
actually donate. Well, we actually bought this as a charity for the Bumblebee service in Munster. It's an ambulance service, sort of a helicopter service in Munster. So it's really good. So,
which the great Tomás O'Shea
is
involved
Tomás, an ambassador for them as well. So the lads get onto us. It's actually excellent. It's signed by Ger and Bomber in it, and then Mark, Tomás, and Dara signed it to us as well. But myself and Willie from the Palace were both bidding against each other. So Willie actually, the Palace there in Fleet Street in Dublin, and Willie bought one also, and the lads were good enough to do a typical Kerry auction. They had a one-off picture. So it's going to be a one-off, only person to have it, whoever gets this. And then when me and Willie got to a silly number, the lads said, well, what if we come up with another one? So we have two one-offs, which was very good of the lads. But as Willie would agree with me, an amazing cause. So it was brilliant. Yeah. And then a lot of people seen that picture. The amount of people that came here because of that picture, because Tomás had it on his Twitter or his Instagram, and actually people did come in even before we got it delivered, because it was actually this time probably 2 years ago when we did it, and it was actually Paddy's weekend. There was people here and they still hadn't. No, it was this time last year. Sorry, it was this time last year, and they hadn't seen it. So the amount of people that even come in to look at the picture. So I got one from Chris O'Sullivan in Cork, and I gave one to the lads on Off the Ball. Owen Sheen felt a little left out there, being the Kerry man in there at the time, so I sent one to Owen.
So the one in the studio and Off the Ball?
The one in the studio and Off the Ball. I gave it to Owen Sheen. He's the South Kerry man that works in Off the Ball, so Owen was very appreciative of it. He did a nice video, him and Jerry Gilroy, when they got it. Yeah, and it looks great in it. And to be fair, it looks brilliant.
That looks great.
And Bomber Liston has done a couple of really cool tweets when certain people are sitting in front of it. But it's a fabulous picture, isn't it, the colour? But it's been great for us anyway, and it's kind of been a part of our, as you say, GAA headquarters, having great pictures like that and stuff. And as I say, the lads and Off the Ball and stuff like that have been brilliant to us. They've even been here to help us, you know what I mean?
And hopefully they'll be here for the New York game, pending coronavirus, obviously.
I know, I only thought of that today. If that actually got cancelled, that would just be an absolute nightmare. How would that work? Like, cancelling that would actually be very interesting, because by cancelling it, are we just assuming that Galway get the win? Obviously not.
Because it's so different, because you're not in the country. Because, as you know, the Galway lads are coming here, and it depends if there's going to be
if there's a lockdown in Ireland, then they can't come here.
The game will just go.
So when does the game go to? Where does the game get played?
Toss a coin.
Toss a coin.
New York's first win in 20 years. Coin toss, I'll take it.
So Johnny Glenn's team win a coin toss over Galway footballers. Johnny'd be fairly popular back there, wouldn't he? That'd be great. But that, hopefully that doesn't occur, and then because it's a great festival here in New York when the championship comes. When the Connacht, come, they play the Connacht Grand Champion or first round.
It's a huge event here.
Oh, it's fabulous, and I think it'd be bigger this year and all because I know they're trying to promote and get Gaelic Park up and running and get the thing working again. But yeah, let's hope that goes ahead. I'd be I don't think so.
And so throughout this podcast as well, Johnny, you've great knowledge here of New York and what's going on, and I'm going to be asking the questions of what to do, and you're going to hopefully what people might know just along the way as the seasons change to just tell us what's on and where's a great spot to go.
Yeah, that's another thing that we hit on too that we thought would be great when we were chatting to one or two of the guests there. You learn, you know what I mean? I remember my first years here and we were like, jeez, look, see the price of the flights down to Orlando, middle of July. We were like, jeez, we'll head down there. 4 paddies heading down to Orlando in the middle of July, and we couldn't work out why the flights were so cheap and the hotels were so cheap because it's bleeding 120 degrees and stuff. So you learn, you learn. But I think there's so many great things to do in New York. I could go on, but there's little things that none of us even know about, even for tourists. That ferry on 34th Street that goes up and down the East River that goes everywhere.
I didn't know about it until you told Louise Cooney on our pod there about 2 weeks ago.
It's $3 and you get on it, there's a bar on it, there's a rooftop on the boats, and they go up and down, or they go up to Astoria. They even go out as far as the Rockaways. And a lot of people didn't realise it because a lot of them ferries got put in and sort of upgraded because with the anticipation of the L train closing. Because there was this long anticipation over the last few years, they were going to close the L train to redo it because it got damaged during Hurricane Sandy, I believe. And then another man who hopefully will come on the podcast, Andy, who just recently left.
Ex-head of the MTA.
Yeah, and it was Andy that came into town, and Andy actually changed.
Better get him before he goes home.
He fixed it. Well, he was here last week talking to the lads about his recent departure. So I don't know. I think New Jersey Transit might have a job for Andy. I think that's a rumor.
All right, yeah.
That could be a rumor that happened. But Andy came along, fixed the L train scenario, and told them they didn't need to close it down. Yeah. But in turn, the water taxis as such, which the C Street, whoever runs, or New York Waterways, I believe it's called. And now that's excellent. And the amount of people that don't realise is that I could send you on one of the best tourist trips from 34th Street for probably less than $6, and it's amazing. Down the East River. Staten Island Ferry free, sit on the right hand side, go right by the statue, Lady Liberty, get off the other side, come back on, get on the front of the ferry, best view in New York, come back in, walk around, get back on the thing, walk up to the Long Hall, and I'll give you the best pint of Guinness in New York City. And
Starts to finish here.
And back at Mighty Munch.
That's the kind of thing, I'm here 18 months and I don't know those things, and people come to New York, what should we do? Where's the place to go? And for a place that's so big and so popular,
I think it's the thing is it's so big and yet so small. You know what I mean? Yeah. What's Manhattan? 11 miles long, 3 miles wide, or whatever. And people do come here, and listen. I love it that they go to Times Square, and you love it, but you kind of cringe then that you think that they kind of get stuck there. But it's not their fault. Sure, what do they know what to do? Go to Grand Central, go to Empire State Building, go. And it's great. And to get back to Louise Cooney, as Louise said, she had mentioned a few places, and a guy approached her and thanked her because they went to 3 or 4 different places. And that's what I think that these bloggers and the girls and guys who are doing all this stuff, they're amazing for that. Because now they're getting to the West Village. They're getting down to the Lower East Side. They're going for drinks on the Bowery, whereas years ago it was not their fault, but they'd be in around bars where I worked in Times Square, and they'd be around there and they'd be like, oh, this is New York. And they loved it too, and it's still great. But go to all of them. You're here for 4 days, you can see so much.
We touched on that with Louise, that kind of social media bloggers have become kind of almost tour guides.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had done it last year with Retro Flame and Kaylin Fox. Then Laura, my wife, she was just going onto their Instagram, see where they went, and kind of followed them.
Well, who better to ask? People that are doing it themselves, and you're watching them do it. You're looking. It's more building a new bar, and most of it is from Instagram. I've spotted places in Ireland where I've seen furniture, and Colin and I have spotted different things on it that we liked from bars all around Ireland. Your screenshot, zooming it in, stealing it, and bringing it into a leading painter decorator. And Stephen Doyle's looking at me going, if you come in here one more time with a stupid picture on your Instagram, but Stephen loves it too now. That's the world we live in now. If you're not doing these things, you're falling behind, I think.
And I suppose our tagline at the start was inspiring immigrants and renowned Irish personalities. So so we want to highlight people who are coming into town and what they're doing, but also the people who are here and who have who have made a life for themselves, you know, how they made it, you know, the barriers they had, what visa issues they had, or what industry they're in. Because there's so many Irish people here doing so many wonderful things. And we would like to get them on. And again, if you have any suggestions as we go forward, let us know.
Yeah, no, there is, and there's a lot of stories. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to be good friends with, like, so Michael McNamee and Pat McNamee. So I had first, you know, front row seat to see how the lads create their business. But there's other young bartenders out there now, just in my industry, who are probably looking and wondering, geez, how do I go about this and how do I go about that? You know, like, everyone can get, all these kids, like, know how to bartend. They know how to waitress. They know how to probably even go down and cook. But to actually go and, you know, get a lease, or how do I go to community board? How do I do all these things? So hopefully we'll get the likes of Michael McNamee on and get people like that on. And Michael can tell his backstory of how you do these things.
Yeah.
And also, go for it. Why not? Like, you know, and that's what New York is. And we've spoke about this a few times. I know I banged this drum probably a bit too much. The positivity of people in New York is just amazing. And the Irish people. But when I say the Irish people, but we're getting it from the New Yorker. We're getting it from the American. Like,
absolutely,
the two Johnnies there, I think, recently did a podcast, or when they were on the pod, and I remember one asking the other, I think Johnny B asked Johnny Smacks what was his, like, irks and dirts, whatever the lads do at the end of the show, which is it's a great podcast. But I remember Johnny Smacks saying the positivity. When he first got there, he was like, the way they're on, she was, good morning, how are you? And Johnny was like, what's this fucking going on about? Like, you know, but as he said, as the week went on, he felt it growing on him. That like, they were just so full of it. They were so full of that. Yeah, go for it. Why not? Yeah. Great morning. Good morning. Yeah, how's your day? And it is.
Why not? Like,
but why not? And it's true. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, and it is, and it's the fear. And I'm not knocking home by far. I love it. I go home more than most. I absolutely love it. But I'd love the Irish away from home more than I do like the Irish at home, as regards just the way we are good to each other here, and the positivity around each other is just go for it. And you're right, aspiring immigrants, it's a great line, like, because everyone should be aspiring to do something.
And they don't have to be huge names. It's like, you know, the vast majority of people here just come here, put their head down and work and make and just carve out a successful life here. And they're the kind of stories, and it's what you'd learn off those people that can help people listening to this show.
Unbelievable. Like, and you don't have to go on to whatever, get your own bar, be a promoter, or do any other, like, law firm or whatever. But just even being here and working hard and being everything, that's the success story. Yeah. The success story is being here and surviving.
Surviving, exactly.
Because it's hard, it's lonely, it's very difficult. And I know we hit on that a few times with a few of the guests. But it is, and it's like, when I'm using the example of the young guy that's coming over to start working with us now from Offaly. And I said to him walking up the street the other day, don't be under pressure to love the place. You know, because everyone keeps telling you must love it.
Yeah.
Just because they love it. They didn't always love it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Because I don't care where we're from in Ireland. We're all come from small town. Because no matter what city you live in, or what town, or what village, you still come from a small community. And New York is pretty intimidating in its own right. Like, what is there, 11 million people on any given day? You know, so it's okay not to be getting here on your first day and going, Jesus, amazing.
Just while you're here, Johnny, how important have Irish Americans been to you in your years here and learning, and even setting up this bar a couple of years ago? A big risk for anyone to take. And, you know, you mentioned a few names there, and I know we've talked about this off air, people who have helped you and gave you that confidence to take the step to go and... Yeah,
but I think it's just because you literally... anyone you work, I worked for the guys at Annie Moore's for a long time, like, and they're good friends of mine, but they did it. So they even just seen lads that done it. But definitely the McNamees, like, for me, like, the lads, like, definitely for me, like, we all lived on the same street, and I still live on it, and the lads lived on it. We all lived in the same apartments. Like, I'm now in Michael's apartment, he was his, but that was literally firsthand watching someone that I lived with and, like, played FIFA with every night, and then seeing him going and getting a mean fiddler. And, like, for people now listening to this podcast and stuff that know New York and stuff, they look at the mean fiddler and think, oh yeah, it's great success, your place is always packed. But people say that like it was just a matter the lads opened the doors. They opened on 47th Street off 8th Avenue. Like, and even that term, like, in the bar business, off an avenue, that's the difference in day and night. Like, being off an avenue and on an avenue at times is just, like, huge. And just watching them work it and seeing them doing it and seeing what they put into it. And again, we all
So what's the difference? What's the main difference as a business person between?
Like if you were on an avenue, like there's a good chance there's a lot of streets in New York you'll never ever 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 drive on or walk on. But I guarantee you've been on every avenue since you've been here. Whether, just by jigs and reels. So if you're in a cab going home at night time, you're going to pass the bar. But on a side street, you might never see it. So now we're on a side street here, as in we're off an avenue. But we're on a two-way as well. We're on one of the doubles, like 34th, 42nd. The doubles,
So it's wide.
57th. Like, so just for a little New York background, a lot of them streets that are double like that, like the ones I know, say 14th Street, 23rd Street, 34th, 42nd, and 57th, and so on. They're pretty much where the ambulances cross. Any of the services, unless they have to go onto that street, they will use them streets because they're wide. So you have two, like you're basically going east to west and west to east. So that in itself is kind of like an avenue as well. But like for Michael and Pat to be on 47, off between 8th and Broadway, I think is what the lads are between. That was a massive challenge for them to build that bar, and it's arguably the most popular, well-known bar anyway in the city, if not most popular, and it's because of them two personalities. So watching these two guys operate, for me, made it like looking at the lads going, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And pretty much that's it, isn't it? Like if they can do it, I can do it, is more like now you've seen the template, but now you still to go and do it. And that's having confidence in yourself. But like at the same time, like I woke up every morning while we were building this place with that immediate anxiety in my stomach, like, oh, what have I done before we got open? But looking back at it, if you didn't wake up with that anxiety, there'd be something wrong with you. You hear sports people saying that, like, well, if I don't have nerves, it's gone. Yeah. If the butterflies aren't there, it's gone. And that's Pork Arrington says it every time. There is a day you're going to wake up and the butterflies are gone. Pork will probably be 70 when that happens.
The lads were advising you on that bar, and even you were telling me when you opened the Westbury that was it Macra gave you kind of almost a...
Oh yeah, like again, I was getting a little anxiety with that a bit. When you're talking figures and back and forth, and I remember even ringing Michael, Macker, as we know, I remember ringing him on the train.
Michael McEntee, isn't it?
McNamee. I remember ringing Michael and asking him, but I knew the answer, but I just needed to hear it, whatever it was. I remember ringing him something about a lawyer wanting to do this, or, blah, 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 and he just said, just sign it. Just sign whatever it is. Whereas a couple of other people might be, geez, don't know about that, hold off on that. If I'd have held off, I wouldn't have got it. Now, Michael's advice was, because he's learned himself, his exact words to me, sign on it. He says, a lawyer can cost you a bar as much as they can get you a bar. Like, what's the worst that's going to be in it? You know the basics of what's in the lease. Now, it's not ideal advice is what I'm saying to other people, but having had the long haul and known Michael the way I do, I knew his point was, it's the amazing location. It's a good bar. You and Colin know what you're doing. Having proven it with the long haul. And he said, just go for it, as in sign it and stuff like that. And he was right. But again, to go back to the bit of the Irish thing as well, the Irish here, and this is a lot about Michael as well. But again, like, and I don't want to be like pointing this at like saying that the Irish are home or anything, but the one thing about the Irish here, 99% I feel, and certain people I've come across in my 19 years or whatever here, is there's no begrudgery with them here. Like, I subsequently found out after that, which Michael ended up telling me after that he had shown an interest in that location. But he parked that and just told me, go for this, do that, and do that. Not 1 ounce of begrudgery was in his voice, because I know him, and he wouldn't be like that. And he had shown an interest and was probably considering having a look at that bar. And anyone else could have kind of said, yeah, well, maybe don't do this, don't do that. He was the opposite. Do this, do that, and do that. And that's, to me, has been the reason why I've got the first and the second place, is that kind of attitude and that type of friendship with these lads and stuff. And there's loads like them. I'm just naming Michael and Pat because they mainly would have been. But I could name like 5-10 others, like, from, just up and down the avenues, lads that are all in the bar business, because they're all doing the same thing and they all know how difficult it is. They know how hard it is to get staff now with minimum wage. They know how hard it is to keep staff. Like the young Irish that are coming here now, they're super educated and they're smart and they're coming over and they're on graduate visas and they want a waitress and bartend and stuff. But they only want to do it for a certain length of time, and they're right. Like, I'm not knocking them for it, but like, there's a very small few that are coming that are like choosing it as a career choice. So we're in a different bracket now where we hire different nationalities and all, which is fine. This is great, but it kind of loses a little the art of what we're trying to sell, especially for me and Cottle more so, because we're trying to really sell the Irishness.
But you can't come here with a visa, essentially, in this day and age now and work in a bar, basically.
No,
Yeah,
because
so-
you've got a graduate visa for, in your case, for journalism and stuff like that. So they can trace people through their visas. They can trace and see that you are not actually working in fashion, or you're not in whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. And even though again, get back to, here's me and you with the lack of knowledge of visas. Some of them don't even allow you to work part-time. That's not in your, your field, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But yet you could be doing an internship.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to make money to pay rent?
Yeah. Like I'll share my visa story in a couple of weeks or a couple of pods, but the barriers that they put down for you to survive here is just to get some supplemental income, just to pay whatever rent you're paying, $2,000 a month.
But there's another topic, like rent. Like where does rent start? Like rent control, and then if you get in an apartment, you're in with a roommate, if you're with a partner or whatever, and then you're like, okay, we'll go in there for a while, but we'll move on to somewhere else. But if you do 2 years in there, and next thing your rent hasn't budged much, maybe by the 3% every 2 years, then you start looking somewhere else. And now all of a sudden, I don't even want to joke, but the rent, what are you looking at? The minimum you're going to pay, you're not going to get a whole lot for less than 2,000 anymore.
$2,000 for a one bed apartment. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And by the way, that's not in the West Village either.
And that's a half an hour subway ride into the city.
And you see,
out of the city from.
You see, when you come to New York as well, you kind of go where you knew somebody. So generally, if your friend was in Woodside, I'll go to Woodside. If your friend was in Woodlawn, your friend was in Yonkers, chances are he wasn't in the city. But if he was, he's living in a small enough apartment, or if he's in a big apartment, whatever. But you weren't going to get an apartment. You generally got an apartment close to the friend who you stayed with. But years ago, you could come to Woodside, Woodlawn, Sunnyside, whatever, and there was value to be had. That seems to have gone now. That's well gone now. Especially like Sunnyside, Astoria, Woodside even now. They're just... for me now, I'm not shocked, because I was always a bit mesmerised why it wasn't expensive, because I realised how close they were. Now Astoria was always that little bit more than the other two, but now Sunnyside has gone extortion. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, and structurally, it's not like...
they're old buildings.
Yeah, you're not getting brand new building. You ain't getting no doorman going in there. How you doing today, Mr. Kennedy? How's your day? That ain't happening. Barely get that out of missus.
We'll go on to it at some stage down the line, but the publication I'm working for, I'm not sure if you want to, the Queen's Post, but I'm going to these meetings and these community board meetings, and any time a developer wants to build residential units, they're saying no, rent control. Sure, if you're not building, it's like back at home. If there's no, if the supply can't meet the demand, it's only one way the rent is going. But that's another one we'll go on.
But again, they're all things, because rents are a big thing. For, like, you know what I mean? Everything is big, and there's so much for people to learn. Because again, looking at these Facebook pages and stuff like that, there's a lot of people, like you came here with your partner, I came here with friends, and I've always been lucky. There's a lot of people coming over here for on their own.
Yeah. And
they're flattening over, and they're like, where should I go live? Who will I go live? And I mentioned it in one of the other interviews or something, and that's like some Manhattan Gales. I find they're amazing like that. They're very much even more about a community of meeting people and getting people in and stuff like that. But again, there's loads of topics for us to learn, to educate people about.
The GA is just, as we'll touch on, just a fantastic, for me it was anyway, just to meet Irish people up in Gaelic Park. A lot of the thoughts it has up there with whatever, the ground or whatever, it's still a hub to meet people. And that's the great thing about the GA, and it's like it's like going into a dressing room at home back in Ireland. It's just Cork people, and it's just all whatever country you're from. But then when you hear all the different accents that are, it's just
that's what changes it.
It's just you hear every Irish accent up there, or even in the bar here in the Long Hall.
But isn't that what's...
It's something that really struck me straight away, because I wouldn't have been used to that.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say to you, isn't that like, for anyone that does travel, that's the one thing. And you kind of look at yourself after a few months and going, geez, shame on me a little. Like, I've never been to these parts of Ireland. That's one thing we all think of straight away. I've never been there. And also, you don't know anyone from outside of your own county. And the chances are, if there's somebody from another county living beside you in Cork, he becomes Dublin Dave or something, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, Wexford Will there, like, you know what I mean? They get named after the county, and God forbid, someone could ask you his surname in 6 years and you still wouldn't know it. Whereas here, you're thrown into it. And again, I think that's what you learn so much from each other, and your opinions, and rightfully so, change or something like that. And then you're encouraged to go to them when you go home.
Yeah.
But that's why I also think your fondness for Ireland grows here.
Absolutely.
Because you leave with, like you said about the GAA there, I'd be straight up, like I think I played hurling 2 or 3 times when I was younger. A fella nearly took the head off me over in Kilmainham once, and I was like, look that, back to the golf course. My dad worked in a golf course. I went back playing golf. It's a lot safer.
All right.
Nobody took the head off me.
Yeah.
I just throw that part in because I don't want to. When you mention golf and you say so, people think you come from a privileged background. I think as Shane Lowry has proven in his many interviews since winning in Portrush, that's not always the case, and it's, you know, his parents went to a lot of lengths anyway. Hopefully we'll con Shane on to here one day and he can give us a little brief on that. But just to finish on what you said there, I couldn't agree more. The whole GAA thing in here, it must be amazing, like for the individual person that's coming over. I don't think any other sport has that. Any other nation has that, where you can actually go over, you know, go join the GAA club. I met a girl there recently. We were watching an All Ireland a couple of years ago. I mean, a friend of mine got talking to this girl from Donegal, and she'd never played GAA in her life, never done that. But as soon as she came to New York, she went straight to Manhattan Gales. I met her there 6 months ago, and like she met her boyfriend, fiance now, all through Manhattan Gales. But she's sorry she went near that place.
And that, like, people might know that, or, well, just let you know, I when I was back home in Cork, I'm from Cork, and I played with Nemo Rangers, and GAA was a massive part of my life, and my wife Laura despised it, hated the GAA, because we were together now 11 years, but every summer it was fixtures and trying to go on holiday.
But they're the women that don't get a mention either, or the partners that don't get a mention of GAA.
And then I went playing last year, and it was great for me last year, but she just didn't like it. She just didn't like the fixture and all that. But funny how it's after turning out now with her own visa problems. She's out training on Donovan Rossa.
I seen that, yeah.
And
She changed
I think it's Manhattan Gales.
Yeah, my
last
missus
week.
said that to me. She was like, I think Laura's changing the girl.
She is just seeing it from a total new viewpoint. She's after meeting so many Irish friends, just 30 girls at training there. Yeah. And I think now she's really seeing, you know, the benefit of the GAA right here. Whereas she kind of had to put up a barrier because, you know, at home it was well, it
personally
was
affecting
serious.
her, but it was also affecting her Saturdays and Sundays, and a couple of nights a week.
And it is a lot more serious.
But again, Laura wasn't wrong in that. But I wouldn't say a lot of lads in the GAA clubs at home realise it either, outside of Ireland. Like, you always hear this thing at home. Oh, it's the community game and and it is great in saying that, but it also divides not divides communities, but certainly for me where I grew up, the lads that played soccer, majority of them didn't play GAA, and the lads that played hurling played GAA. They both played, you know, if you played hurling, you played football. But when you get here and you see it, your whole core, your friends, generally it comes from that. Like I say, I came here, I never played it, and none of my friends did. But you got morphed into it. Like, I slag and say that I only started watching GAA in like the 72nd minute of the 2011 final. Like, you know, I mean, that's the first time I watched it.
It is true.
But it is true. But you know what? And we'll hit on this in another time. But the reality is, getting back to McNamee there, Michael earlier on, I remember them lads calling me, and we all lived on the same street, to go around to watch the game. But the truth of it is, all through the noughties, I would have known more that was going on in the GAA than I'd even have let on to the lads. I would have listened to it at home on the radio, like you'd have RT radio, and I'd often watch it in the house. But you were morphed, you were brought around to it, and you would be in the bars, and it became a banter between you and your co-workers. Like, I worked with a couple of girls in Sidetracks that were from Tyrone, and this was all through the noughties. And I was like, jeez, I got sick of listening to them. But in good set, I mean that in good humour, like, it was great crack. But the reality was I was illegal. I didn't want to go around and watch the games because I couldn't have it. Mm-hmm. And I remember Dublin getting beaten by Mayo in the semi-final when they were so far ahead. I think it might have been 08 or 09. No, it wasn't 09, whatever. But I remember Blondie coming out with the dreads, and him scoring the goals in the second half, and just blew Dublin away. But I remember lads standing there and they were talking about going home for the final, and they were booking flights. At the time they were ringing people to book flights, but I was standing there and I couldn't go. I remember a mate of mine with me from Tala, and he couldn't go. And so we just distanced yourself from it. That was the other side of it. That was something you couldn't have. That was a reminder of something you couldn't, you know, you'd no interest in it. So you nearly distance yourself from it. Yeah. Then you move the clock forward and I get my green card. And next thing I'm fucking like Darlogill, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, bring it on. Like, I haven't missed an All-Ireland final since, but I love it now.
Yeah.
But even so, I'll even go another one, Irish music. You end up being away from home and you hear that in the background and you're kind of like immerse you in a little bit.
Just like you have Joe Duffy on during the day here.
Joe Duffy in the morning.
You hear it.
I would argue I know more. I wouldn't argue. I know for a fact. I know more day to day of what's going on in Ireland than I would in America. My day starts with Irish radio and it'll finish with an Irish podcast. And now I love America and I'm an American citizen now. I love everything about it and I'll always live here. But you end up becoming, embracing your culture more the longer you're away. And as you get older and your parents get older and stuff like that. Now, that's not for everybody. I'm sure not everyone's the same. But I couldn't be full-blown, either one or the other. I couldn't be all American this and nothing about the Irishness and all. Well, there was a time if you'd have said that to me, I'd have been the other way around. I'd have been like, I lived in Australia. I was bleeding. In Australia, I was going to bleeding cricket games and going to NRL games and everything. I was unreal,
Gaelic Park, because I remember doing stories for it last year before the Mayo game back home, and I was interviewing a guy up there, Seamus Smith, and he had been here for 30 years, and he was just telling me the stories of Gaelic Park back in the day and the old clubhouse and the dances they had, and it was a bigger hub back in the day because you didn't have that social media aspect or whatever, so everyone met in Gaelic Park.
Yeah. And
then that's kind of fed into what we're doing in the pod here. It's because there's been a lot of mistakes with Gaelic Park. It's almost like it's lost from us for a couple of years, for the last couple of years. I'd love for it to just rise again and be that hub up there, a nice place where people were used to be having their dinner after, because we were sitting out on plastic benches last year and just afterwards just chatting, and it wasn't ideal, but when you meet people afterwards, it was fantastic. And get back to your point about knowing more about Ireland. We're working with Irish Central last year. I learned far more last year than I ever did about Ireland from working with Irish Central, because they're trying to, of course, they're trying to cover all aspects and the beauty of Ireland or whatever. And I was just learning. And as you said, I was ashamed I hadn't gone to a lot of these places.
Sure.
And it's only when you leave that you go a bigger fondness for.
Sure, when we had Macker's wedding in Donegal in 2012 or something, I remember driving up and seeing all the mountains, and I was cringing thinking that I was in New Zealand 2 years before that and raving about the mountains. Here they were 3 hours up the road from me the whole time.
See, that's where you missed out not being involved with the travelling the back of beyond.
Yeah, well, you were lucky to play for Nemo, so at least you got to be in it, longevity and playing place. But just to hit on it there, whether we keep this or not, do you think...
It's all right, Johnny. I'll let it over over the weekend.
But that gentleman, Seamus, that you met from Mayo, and he's 30 years and he was up there and he was nearly had a pining probably in him for the whole thing. Do you think a little bit of that comes from a generational thing? Like you and Laura chose to leave home, correct? We weren't forced by... I left in 99.
A lot of people were forced.
Yeah, I left in 99. It was booming. But I was at that age where I wanted to travel. Yeah. I was done. I was in the early 20s and I was like, I'm gone. But I even met people after that since who, after the crash of 08 and stuff like that, not necessarily in New York, but a lot of them that went to Australian places and mining and all, they could flip either way, I'd say. Because there'd be some of them that might have a resentment towards Ireland because they were forced to leave. There was no tears in the airport when I was leaving. Jesus, my parents fucking drove me to it. Good luck. But no, genuinely, they were delighted for me that I was going. But I never, and that's why I think I probably, I'm not saying everybody, but that more so, let's go back that other generation you were talking about, the 30-year guy. People that left through the 60s, 70s and 80s, and certainly the 80s. I've met a lot of lads over the 80s in the year, and you could see it in them. They were and they were like... Yeah.
There's actually that interview I did with Seamus. He had said that there was... people had left back in the 80s, and I must put it up on YouTube. I have it on Facebook. It's a great... Seamus would just rattle off all GA history, but it's, of course, they were forced to go, and of course they embraced the culture then even more because they didn't want to go.
But did you also find, I think the long round point I'm trying to get to, that then there was two types of them. Then there was some of them that came here and kind of resented America a little. They were a little bit like, oh, this is an Irish bar, what are you doing in here type of thing. I know these stories. I've heard of these things around Woodside and Woodlawn over the years. That they were so much about their whole Irishness that they were nearly like, well, I'm just over here. I.e., they probably landed in JFK, went straight to one of these locations, never really left it, never did a whole lot, worked there, worked hard and sent money home. And I couldn't imagine what that would have been like. But never then embraced the American culture. To go another way on it. there's no sports I wouldn't watch. I watch anything, and I'd have a fair knowledge of most anyway. I can certainly sit through any game of any sport, and I'd know enough that's going on. But then, over the years, like, I've been in bars. I've bartended for 20 years here now, and I've heard crap like, why are you watching that shit for? Turn off that football. Or they wouldn't even call it football, and now we're referring to NFL here. You know what I mean? Super Bowl, one of the biggest sporting events, always has been and always will be. I'm just saying, not only did it, if you don't like it, you don't like it, that's fine. But why slag it off?
Yeah.
You're in their country. Like I said earlier, I went to cricket and I went to the reason I went to watch cricket and went to watch NRL in Australia, because I'm in work with Australians in English, and the lads are talking about it the next day. I don't want to be the lad in the corner going, don't know what they're talking about, I couldn't care less. 1 day cricket, 2 day, 20 tests, 2020, whatever. What better to do? Don't move to a country if you're not going to embrace the culture. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Like, we give out about enough in Ireland where people are coming over and they're not doing this and all, like doing that. But you probably can't win.
Yeah. I'd say that you don't have to, like, I try to get into the NFL, but it's not a sport for me. But I wouldn't.
I think I'm probably more so talking about just in general. I know that's not, but to you still love America and you love everything about it, and you respect the people that live here and everything about it. I've seen it, my experience is in the 90s I came here and I seen it where people were like, it's an Irish bar, what are you doing in here? And I've seen that. And this would be, by the way...
Australia, I never came across that.
No, you don't, thankfully, anymore. Yeah. I've never heard of it anymore. I don't think it goes on. I wouldn't like to think it is. And by the way, the people that be saying this would probably be first generation Irish American kids whose dad was forced to come over similar to them. And they'd be in around. And in my experience, this happened more so in Queens. Sorry, my experience... I seen it happen in Queens, but I know it went on in the Bronx as well.
And you're out in Sunnyside all your life?
Yeah, I've been all my American life. Yeah, Sunnyside.
Yeah. Same. I'm out there as well for people who want to.
I've been in 5 different apartments with the same landlord on the same street. 4 exes and all the gaffs. Missus love to hear that.
Player. Johnny, so like coming up to Paddy's Day now, and this is where I'd really like to get your input into these events, and we'll have the likes of Paddy Green coming in and telling us what kind of social events are coming on. But like, hopefully we'll get this out this weekend. But if not, Paddy's weekend is coming up here now. Unfortunately, the parade has been cancelled for coronavirus. But going back, your experience of Paddy's Day here and how Irish Americans, what's Paddy's weekend like for you here?
In this industry anyway, it was always like you had a little anxiety building. Oh, here we go. But I have to say, I love them.
What do you mean?
Because you know it's a long day, like, especially in the city. If you're working in the city, like I was...
Is messy, like?
Messy, but good messy. Like, as in, there was genuinely never seen any aggro counts. I just think Irish Americans and Americans are just, geez, they're amazing. Like, they just love a good day out. They don't care, like... And you know what? They all arrive down from upstate New York and have their iron jumper on and their hat and the whole lot. But isn't it amazing, like, that here we are as a tiny little country, and here's the whole world that wants to be us for a day? Like, does any other country have that?
It's just it's
like, and like another.
It's unique for a country the size of Ireland to have a day that's just Irish,
and it shows
it's an Irish day.
Yeah, but it shows also what we still the pull or how we're regarded still in America. In New York, no matter who you are, your parade falls on the weekend of whatever that week is, if you know what I mean. So I don't know the dates of Tartan Day. I think it's in a few weeks' time. Puerto Rican Day Parade, all these parades. But if they land on a weekday, they have to pick a Saturday either side of that date. St. Patrick's Day is the only one that still lands on the 17th. It's on the 17th, with the exception of a Sunday.
Fifth Avenue is still shut down for
So, like, I know it's been cancelled for this week, so St. Patrick's Day was going to be this Tuesday, and it was going to be on a Tuesday.
Actually, the first St. Patrick's Day parade, if I'm not wrong, was definitely in America and started in New York, I think. And
right.
And it expanded from here.
Yeah.
But even you said that I was just going through my mail today for some local events, and I think there was an event Friday for Greek Independence Day, and it's sure Greece is a small country, but
no.
Who knows about Greek?
Yeah.
And Paddy's Day is just
maybe it's our love for the social aspect of it, but it's great when you see
definitely a key.
Yeah, it's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
But when you see other nationalities, just they embrace it. They're going, wow, this is great, like, you know. But it's that day, isn't it? Like, and we were trying to hit on there earlier, but like even the first generation, like I've heard Des Bishop many times say that was his identity. It was huge. Like, that's that day in March, and I can now, having been here so long, I can see totally what he means by that. That's like, that was his day to go in and flex his muscles in school, you know what I mean? And the Italian kid had his day, and then and Des Bishop joked many times, like if you were a mix, like
Friend of the pod.
yeah, if you were a mix, like if your parents was, you know, German, Irish, and I guess Des Bishop said you're nowhere near as much cred, like, you know what I mean? He was, if you were full blown Irish, and that still goes on.
Do you know him? Do you?
No, I met him briefly.
right,
The
okay.
Monaghan lads brought him over this year. Yeah, very from Queens, I think.
Yeah.
Flushing or Jackson Heights or something in that area. Great success story. When you look at the flip side, like there's a guy that got sent to Ireland, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. As he jokes many times, had a drink problem, so they sent him to Ireland. But just to finish, just a bit on your question, I've loved it. I've worked in bars, and you'd literally 8, 9 in the morning, and probably work genuinely on your feet for that whole time till 12 o'clock at night. But another time we'll talk about, again, sports, or for our friends at home. You're in the tipping industry here. You're in the service industry. So if you're doing 12 hours on your feet in New York, you're making money on the hour all the time. You're like, apart from the hourly rate, generally people are tipping you, and New Yorkers and people that live in New York are the one area that still are very generous in that department.
How does, just from my own ignorance, Johnny, having never worked in the
How much should you
bar
tip?
industry,
Do you want to ask me how much you should tip?
Should
In the
I
long
use-
haul, it's a standard 20.
standard 20, is
20
that
a
before
visit.
or after tax? A man told me before that it has to, that he does
doubles the
20%.
tax, does he?
No, he does the 20% before tax.
I won't ask where in Ireland that fellow was from.
He's American.
Yeah. So he puts,
He saw, like, if it was
so if it was a straight $18 without the tax, he left 20% on the 18 as
yeah.
opposed to the tax.
yeah, so if it's $20 all in, he'll tax the 20% on the 18
Right.
before tax.
Well, that's fine if he's just drinking them. But what if he has a soda or something like that, and then he has a load of food? So there's tax on food if you're sitting at a bar. There's no tax on alcohol when you're sitting at the bar.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So how does that work again?
They don't charge tax on your drinks if you're sitting at the bar drinking. But if you're sitting at a table, so a pint of Guinness at a table costs more than it does at the bar.
And is that law or?
It should be, but I see some bars now have snuck it in where they're charging tax at the bar. And in my opinion, the only person getting hurt is the bartender, because he's the one that has to listen to the consumer. Like, why you charge me $8.17 or whatever for a pint of Guinness?
Yeah.
But I've had incidents where I've been at a bar and the guys charged me tax, and I'd said it to him. I don't mind giving it to him, but I've made a point of saying it to him. Happened to be on a bar down the Bowery there about a year ago, and he goes, "Oh yeah, it's New York. They charge tax at the bar, so you shouldn't." Well, whether you should or you shouldn't, they never have. No other bars have done it. I know bars that do it, and I think it's wrong.
And
personally.
food is just the same, is it?
Food is tax. There's tax on food no matter what.
Because you know yourself, when you've relatives coming over and they're new, and it took me time to get used to it. They come in and they're just not sure whether to tip, and you're like, the waitress now knows that you're not. The person's
Yeah.
after maybe paying for that there, and they forget to tip or they didn't know it.
Yeah, no, it is.
Drives me crazy, to be honest with you. I love just being at home and just paying for your.
Yeah. Again, it's another thing that you could cover on the pod, like as people that live here, their anxiety of their parents. I've loads of great stories of people that have heard things that people have done. Like, there was a girl I knew once, and her and her mum were in a bar together, and the daughter was in the industry, and she left the bartenders a tip when she was leaving. And then when she was walking in the road, she was in the cab with her mother, and her mother gave her back the tip, and she says, "Here, you left that in the bar. You forgot that." And the daughter was like, "That was a tip, man." "Oh, just don't be silly, that was way too much. What are you doing?" And the mum had just no concept of that they just said there and there. Look, I get it with tourists coming over and people, it's hard, but I also don't buy when you get people coming over and saying, "Oh, sure, we don't know, we live in Ireland." Listen, the dog in the street knows you tip in America. You tip. And also, just to give a bit of like balance on it, it's a service. It's a service charge. If you don't feel the service was good, but I'd rather you gave something and tip it out, because when you're stiffing that one person that upset you or peed you off, and they're not the only one with their hand in that tip cup. There's a bus boy losing out there. There's a co-worker losing out there. There's other people. Give the minimum, and then at least and tell them your opinion if you want.
I was just going to ask, how do you divvy it out? So, like, if someone's serving me, is all her tips going into one pot at the end of the night, and then if she finishes at 8 o'clock and someone else is working till 10?
Yeah, everywhere differs. Everywhere differs. So personally, I think the customer shouldn't have to worry about any of that. You get your check, you pay it. Whatever they do with it, it's their problem. But It fascinates me. Everywhere is different. Like, I spoke to a girl the other day as regards hiring for the new place, and she told me where she works that each server keeps their own tables. And I know places in Newport and like Rhode Island and places that do that, but I just don't get that. So let's say you and I are both serving together. We're both waiting tables, and if I've got the 3 tables over in the right hand corner and you've the 3 tables down the back, so if you walk by my tables and a customer asks you for something, do you get the snot on and go, it's not my table? Like, let's say you've nobody down there. And then, what, the customer's supposed to know the politics of the place? Yeah, automatically you're giving bad service. But I don't, there's a lot of things I don't get.
I can understand if you're assigned to a certain table, but say if it's all in one pot now and one person, she's finishing at 8 o'clock, and then the next person is finishing at 10, how do you divvy it all up?
Generally it differs. So if your check was open, so you're still sitting at the table, you started at 6, let's just do it simple, you started the check at 6, you're still sitting there at 8, and one of the girls is leaving at 8, say, let's say it's just female, right? So one of the girls is leaving at 8. Generally what we would do here is whatever that check is at, let's just say for argument's sake it's at $100 at 8 o'clock. So now they circle it and say it's $100. So we'll guesstimate then that you leave 20%. That girl is probably owed 20. But if you carry it on, then it goes to $500, and the other girl, she gets the tip on the remaining 3. But then there's other bars differ. There's other, like some bars take turns then at going home. Someone that goes early.
Is that hard to work out at the end of the night?
It's not, but it's generally the politics in place. But the other thing about it is, which whether we cut all this out or not, but the other thing that is, and I think it is worth talking about something, the other thing is, all of this is built on trust. The bartending, waitress and service industry in New York, it doesn't work without trust. And there's a lot of trust has to be given, like whether it be from the owner to the staff to everybody. And I will say this, if you're not trustworthy, or if you're, if you don't do the right thing in this town and you're found out, you'll be gone. And I know many cases. Not too many, but I know enough. And I know their names off the top of my head without even thinking about it. Like, too hard to think about. Because it's the ultimate no-no in this town, in this industry, as it should be, but it really is bad.
So if we do actually kind of go on a bit, we might, one of our concepts was to do kind of an after hours or an extras of a particular podcast. For example, we did talk to Jack McCaffrey last week, and we did about an hour with him, and then we just got talking to Jack after when we finished, and he wanted, Jesus, I wouldn't mind talking a little bit of politics here.
He was a little upset we didn't talk about politics.
I didn't know he was into politics.
It was Super Tuesday.
I know.
I know.
He'd CNN on. Like, I couldn't take anyone who watches CNN seriously. Anyway.
That's another thing you'll find out about this podcast.
So, and I went back listening to it, and it's a good concept afterwards. If you want to listen to more, we get on to it. It mightn't be everyone's cup of tea, but it's something that we're going to kind of work on. So we wanted to keep them. No, anytime we've done a pod, it's went on way more longer than an hour. Yeah. So as we said, we are learning as we go on, and with feedback, we'd appreciate the feedback. If you like them, we'll hold on to them. But it's going to be. It's a nice name, Johnny. After Hours, I thought of that.
No, it is good. Yeah, it's never been used before. You definitely are the only one that ever used that. Yeah, you never. You don't watch Bill Maher, obviously.
Well, we will have a lot of guests coming on. We will do our own bits and pieces.
Yeah, because there's not always going to be guests in town. Yeah. The way these flights are getting grounded, there might be anyone. You might just have to listen to us. But we're happy to bring on anyone in New York as well. If anyone wants to come on and talk about anything, anyone feels they have a knowledge they could share with people, whether it be visas again to hit back on that, or just anything, or even get something out there that they want to, struggling for anything, whatever it may be. If you just need to dig out on anything, give us a shout.
Or if you want to come on board, we don't need a producer, but we were thinking of one of the things. We have a website, and it was kind of feeding back into the GA thing, Johnny, that we might kind of, if other county boards that this is kind of thinking long term or medium term, that if we got a bit of traction here with our GA side, that we could do a little on our website. We could do a little sports or a GA section where you get the results in. You could send in some videos or something, and we'd be happy to cover GA games here if there's an appetite for it.
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, I've seen over the years the amount of effort and time. Without naming them, I don't want to leave anyone out, but all the clubs that from the certain counties that come through New York over the years, I see the passion that all them clubs are. Why not give them a bit of exposure? Yeah. Like as we say, if a Larry Tompkins can get discovered in New York through playing for Donegal, New York, and ends up leaving Kildare and going to Cork, I was fascinated after talking to him and the manager. Basically, there wouldn't be in a Larry Tompkins Cork, but for New York. There's no doubt about it. Not a chance. And he admitted that himself. He said, "There's no, like,
It's a
I don't think that
story.
gets. I don't think that. I'm not saying there'd be or dismissive of it in Ireland, but I never knew that. And I knew of Larry Tompkins because he lived pretty close to me at home, so I'd heard the name, and even when I looked into it, but the New York factor in it is the biggest factor in it.
And that's why he came back here last January to talk to Donal Gallagher, to honour him for who was being honoured at the Donegal event, because he realised how important that was to his career. Donal coming over, looking after him, how he kind of, developed as a player here, and then went back, and then we know the rest is history, as they say.
Like, I've heard some of these lads, like, their signature on there to say that he's arguably one of the best players that ever played the game. Wouldn't have been discovered but for Gaelic Park in New York and Donegal. That, to me, is fascinating that it's a little bit just gets brushed over a bit. Like, oh yeah, he played in New York. The guy captained Cork to win an All-Ireland, and he's from Eadstown in Kildare. Like, that wouldn't happen today in any realm, or it just doesn't happen. You end up staying with your county, and that's it. Unless you're in the army or the guards and you've moved, and that's it.
And Larry will be back out in September, he was telling us. September, October, he's releasing his book, hopefully in June. Send that to Donal Gallagher. And we hope to kind of...
There'll be no book if you don't.
We hope to give him a bit of exposure
Basically, Michael
here.
Stolen Larry's book.
So we interviewed Donal Gallagher. One of the things about what we've been lucky about on the way is that we met... Larry asked us to interview Donal here one day, so we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and just his story is great, and we'll be releasing that. But it'll hopefully feed into Larry's book. That was the concept behind it. And Larry is going to be coming over, and actually there's going to be a Cork event here in September, October to honour the lads who won the double 30 years ago.
That's bleeding mental. That was 30 years ago.
Unbelievable, yeah. So that's about it, everyone. I must do my... give us a follow on @The Long Haul Podcast on Instagram, @The Long Haul Podcast on Facebook, @The Long Haul Pod on Twitter, and just give us some comments. And if you have any guests that you want to hear us interview or speak to, let us know.
Santi, my dear Annie.
And that's all for this week's podcast. Keep an eye out for our episode with 5-time All-Ireland football winner with Dublin, Jack McCaffrey, where we take a look back on Dublin's historic 5 in a row in 2019, potential rule changes, and Jack's thoughts on his goals for the future. Keep up to date with all of our latest episodes by subscribing to the podcast, and we appreciate all feedback, so please give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter.
Inside the house the drinks were passed around, the liquor was so awful strong, my head went round and round to me away. You Santi, my dear Annie, oh you New York girls, can you dance?